I just received this SIG KILO2000 laser rangefinder, and one of the ways I wanted to test this was consistency. Since I don't have a laser rangefinder already, this is my first laser rangefinder. I wanted to test this based on how consistent it reads distances, not only multiple readings, but also at different times of the day in the same area. So I have there's this hill that overlooks all of campus, the UC Riverside campus, and the 215 freeway /60 freeway you see on the left side here. We're facing due north, and my office is just down over this hill. It's a short hike, not very far, and this is a pretty good spot that I can come to in the morning before I start work, and then during my lunch hour, and then after work I can stop by here and do readings as far as distances on a bunch of different landmarks. So right now I'm recording everything in a notebook, or a little field notes book, and I'm going to pick a bunch of various objects on campus as far as buildings, landmarks, whatnot on campus, on the freeway and the other side of the freeway. And this should give me at least some baseline to work off of to see how well or how consistent the SIG KILO2000 laser rangefinder is as far as distance reading. Right now it's overcast this morning. I didn't expect to be overcast. So the sun is typically, or it should be, rising over here above this hillside, or this mountain on that you see here. But right now it's overcast. But this is going to give me at least a good indicator right now of how well it is in overcast, and it should burn off by 9 o'clock this morning, 0900. And so what I'm going to do is come back at noon and then do some readings in midday sun, and then this afternoon around a couple hours before dusk I should do some more readings, and that should give some good baselines. And I might come back, today's Friday, so I might come back on Saturday morning, assuming it's sunny in the morning, to do readings at that time from this spot. So right now I'm essentially just getting my first set of readings. I'm recording all in this notebook, or this field notes notebook, and I'm picking a bunch of different landmarks, and I'm recording where exactly on each landmark I'm getting a laser distance off of, just to make sure I laze the same spot. And I'm going to mark the spot that I'm setting my tripod under, so I can set pretty much on the same spot every time I come back here, to make sure my readings are relatively going to be off of the same area. One thing I didn't notice so far, I don't know if it's just because it's overcast and so this laser is trying to fight through the mist or the fog, but taking multiple readings off of the same spot appears to vary quite a bit, by as much as a yard. So right now I just took 3 readings off the wall next to a window of this building. I'm reading 562.2, 562.7, and 565.4. So that third reading is a good 3 yards off. So I'm not sure if it's because of my technique or what. So that one read 561.6. So there is quite a bit of variance right now, and I'm not sure if it's just the way I'm lasing, but I have it on a tripod, so it's relatively stable. But we'll see. Again, this is just my first initial testing, and we'll see how it does in brighter lighting conditions. So I made it back up the hill. It's 12:30 to do my second round of testing with the SIG KILO2000 laser rangefinder. We're gonna go ahead and get some second round of data recorded. What I ended up doing before I came up here is trying to get, I guess, the notes, my original data points, collected and put into a notebook or into a spreadsheet. So if I can get the field notes here. So if you can see here, I just put everything in a sheet so I can just quickly run through them and collect all my data and get out of here. Pretty much this is my lunch break, so I'm just going to go ahead and record all this data. Take 3 readings from each of these locations that I did this morning, and hopefully we should have another round of data to which to compare to. So campus looks pretty cool right now. It's sunny, a little bit of haze right now, just a bit. And if you can see the skyline, this is typical Inland Empire skyline. This is crap air that we have out here. It's either smog and or other crap that might be floating around in it. But this is typical Inland Empire Riverside air quality. But I'm gonna go ahead and start doing data right now, or collecting data. One thing I've noticed from the second round of field testing is that the readings from, there was a couple of spots on campus I couldn't get a reading from in the morning because of I guess it was too foggy or hazy. I'm getting a reading now. So one specific spot about 1,300 yards out, I was able to get a reading off of it now in daylight. So I guess it's clear. I don't know if it's a clearer haze or clearer air, less haze, or it just needed more light. 283. So the one thing I'm noticing right now in the daylight, or the sun above us, directly overhead in midday sun, is that I'm able to range a bunch of buildings that are farther away than this morning that I couldn't read. So I was trying to get a reading off of this building, which is showing up at 1,600 yards, 1,600.5. And I couldn't get a reading off that building this morning. So I'm trying to find a few more landmarks that I can laze, that maybe I can touch out to 2,000 yards. But it doesn't look like it. Here we go. I've got a reflective sign on the parking structure for the University Village. It's reading at 1853.6. 1853.6. The University Village parking struct sign. 1852.3. So I'm trying to touch out to 2,000. We'll find another reflective surface. Hopefully we can find some other object at 2,000 yards. What's beyond that? Not much else. Everything else is a building beyond it. There's nothing that could give me a good reflective surface at 2,000. But I think 1,860 yards, 1,850 yards is pretty good, all things considering. Anyway, that's it for the testing for the second round. I'm going to come back up here after work this afternoon to get my third round of testing. With the sun should be setting on this side, so it should be pretty low in the sky at this point at around 1,700 hours. So I made it up the hill the third time today. It's just after 1630. The sun is still fairly high in the sky. I figure sunset isn't around until around 1930 today. But this is still about late afternoon sun. So we're gonna do some quick tests off the doing our distance range finding on the various landmarks that I took data on this morning and this at noon during my lunch break. So one thing I noticed when I was recording the data from my notes into an Excel spreadsheet was that my data from the morning to the midday hour was it varied. Their averages, I've been taking 3 readings per spot in each session. So I have 3 readings from the morning and 3 readings from noon for each location, or for each object landmark I'm doing a laser rangefinder on. And the variances, it varies by as much as 2 yards either way. Some spots were recording farther than it was in the morning, and some spots were recording shorter than it was in the morning, by as much as 2 yards. So I'm not entirely sure if that was because of the haze or what, but it's an interesting observation. It's Saturday, August 28th, and it's the day after I started my field testing. And the reason why I wanted to come out this morning, even though I took 3 sets of data yesterday, is because it's actually sunny this morning. It's relatively clear. It's nowhere near as overcast as Friday morning. So the sun's out, it's over the mountain, and it's slight haze because of the humidity, but so it's relatively clear, and we got a fair amount of sunlight. One thing I did yesterday afternoon at 1630 is I actually tried to laze a couple targets that were really far out there, that were houses, and I actually got a reading of 2,400 yards if my notes are correct, and that's actually quite impressive. And I was surprised I was able to get a reading off of that. And I used Google Maps, and on Google Maps or Google Earth, you can, either one, I think it's the same application, but you can actually measure 2 points on a map. And I measured from this location to that street and that house that I can see, and it actually came out to just over 2,400 yards, if I recall. And that matches up with the readings I got. I got 2420, 2421, 2434. And so that's pretty good. But right now I can't get a reading off of it. I tried several times, and the Laser Rangefinder, the SIG KILO2000, could not get a reading. So I'm not sure if it's because the sun's directly behind me, and my line of sight to that house, the sun is directly behind the unit or my location. Yesterday the sun was about, not directly past it, but that path would have been directly past it, but it was overhead. So I'm not sure what that means as far as lighting conditions are concerned. Anyway, I also tried to I worked my way backwards, and I was working my way from relatively close landmarks to farther landmarks, but I worked my way around because I figured the farther distance landmarks would be what I wanted to get data off of in this lighting condition to see if it was harder to get. And the next farthest buildings I tried to get readings off of were supposed to be around 1,800 yards. Yeah, 1,800 yards. And I actually got readings, but I had to try several times, so I'm going to put that in my field notes. As far as maybe one out of 2 or 3 tries, I was able to get a reading. So for my 3 next landmarks that were the farthest away, at 1,850 yards, 1,760 yards, and 1,600 yards, all 3 of those landmarks required me to check several times. One of them, I guess, the two farther ones have reflective surfaces because they have like electrical signs or whatever, or lit signs, so they have like, I guess, a reflective surface on them. Then the third farthest target, 1,600 yards, that one's a building, the side of a wall, so I didn't expect that to come back easily, but I was able to get a reading. And so, but the rest of them, under 1,600 yards, the rest of them are like at 13 and under, and I was able to get a reading easily. So I guess my initial, just right now, like analyzing in my head, it seems like that you need fairly good light to get a reading. I don't know why that would be the case, because a laser is supposed to be able to function. I mean, you bounce the laser off an object, the laser comes back to the unit, and that's it. So, but I guess sunlight does, or where the light is, maybe your laser's trying to fight the light, the sunlight, as far as its path back to the unit. That could be an issue. I know definitely that yesterday afternoon when we had that fog and haze, that definitely affected the unit's performance, because there was just so much humidity in the air, so much haze and fog in the air. So I expected that. But so the various sunlight conditions, how that affects the unit, where the sun is in the sky relative to your unit, that definitely seems to have some effect on the performance of the unit, and something we'll analyze or I'll put down in the notes when I write up my article or my little review of this SIG KILO2000 in my blog article. So my initial field testing has been trying to do a consistency test, but I think for the most part, a lot of people also want to know how well does it read specific types of objects, I guess trees and whatnot, because buildings, most people aren't using laser rangefinders for buildings. These things are being used out in the field for hunting, maybe for target practice. So I guess trees are one of the best objects to laser, because oftentimes you won't be able to laser your target directly because it's so small. And so you'll probably pick the next best thing, which is maybe it's next to a tree or some other object like a rock. And right now in the early morning sun, I have no problems getting readings off of trees at various distances, from as close as 763 yards to about, what's that one at? $1,350 yards. I got one at 1,350. The tree next to it, 1,370. $1,447. So, I mean, as long as you have a relatively large tree, because this laser, I don't think the laser is very tight. I think it's got a wider dispersion beam. So I got 1518 yards. I mean, this, you should be able to pick up trees fairly easily. That's not a big deal. I think small objects, I was able to get lased on small sections of wall at 1300 yards. I figured that section of wall had to have been at most, I don't have a range-finding reticle on this thing, but I figure that section of wall is about no more than 10 feet wide based on the glass pane. No, it can't be 10 feet wide. It's got to be about 4 feet, 5 feet wide. So at 1300 yards, 5 feet, I mean, that's pretty good on an object of that width or size. I can check, I'd have to turn around, but I got rocks on that side to laze off of. So if I turn around and try to pick up some rocks in the distance, there's a rock. That's a small rock. 1423. It's pretty good. There's a rock right there on the ridge. 920.5. So I mean, you're getting these readings fairly easily. 273.4 on a small rock close by. I got a rock right there. 326.6. It's a larger rock out there. 642.2. It's a boulder past the freeway sign. 1207.8. 1207.5. It's a farther rock. I think that's a rock. That's a rock. 1222.3. So I think it reads field objects, or like field in quotes, like I guess trees, rocks, hillsides and whatnot. You should be able to get pretty good get distances fairly easily with the SIG KILO2000. So I have the SIG KILO2000 laser rangefinder, and my initial impressions are pretty good. As far as the unit's concerned, the SIG KILO2000 does take readings fairly well on various targets, reflective and non-reflective. Non-reflective targets, I actually had pretty good luck with the unit out to, I would say, about 1,200 yards. I wouldn't call the landmarks that I took a reading off of as being reflective. There were buildings, sides of buildings, concrete and brick and stucco. So that seems pretty good, 12 to 1,300 yards. Perhaps some of the maybe the laser hit some metal on the side of the building. I intentionally tried to pick sides of buildings with fairly flat matte surfaces to get the non-reflective readings, because that's what matters most to people who buy laser rangefinders. They want performance with non-reflective, because when you're in the field, when you're trying to lace trees and rocks, you're going to be lasing non-reflective targets or non-reflective objects, that is to say. So I did my field testing, and as far as picking several landmarks and lasing those landmarks several times per day in various lighting conditions, and it seems like they all performed relatively, I mean, I got readings that were relatively consistent no matter what time of day it was, up until about 1,300 yards. Beyond that, it had trouble getting any readings. So any surfaces or objects that were reflective or non-reflective beyond 1,600 yards in early morning or haze conditions, I couldn't get a reading off of. It was sketchy. So I think you need bright sunlight, midday sun, in order to get far readings on, I would say, non-reflective targets and even reflective out to 2,000 and beyond. But I think this performs well within what I would consider, at least for myself, a good laser rangefinder. If I can get a reading to 1,000 yards, maybe a little bit over 1,200 to 1,300 yards in any conditions of sunlight, that's great. Now, obviously, I took that initial test was in early morning, foggy with haze and no sunlight, and I was only able to get readings out to about 1,200 yards, which is still good. Obviously, some guys, they will expect it to perform up to spec, and they want like 2,000 yards plus. I don't think that's realistic. I mean, that's considered ideal conditions. Then again, people are very hard to please. And that's what I had a hard time doing when I was shopping for a laser rangefinder. Everyone said, oh, SIG KILO2000 is great. And then some other guys came out and said, oh, no, I had troubles reading this, that, and the other thing. And then people started dogging it. So, oh, you might as well get a Leica 1600B. And everyone wants perfection, but perfection at a low cost. This is only $500 roughly street price. And so it's hard to say that, you know, what should you expect? You should have a moderate level of expectation with a laser rangefinder, and that's my opinion. But guys who nitpick about every little thing will never be happy when it comes to laser rangefinders. They're always going to want to get the Terrapin, which supposedly is like the best laser rangefinder you can get, but that thing costs a couple $1,000s plus. But I digress. As far as the other little things about this, I haven't really tested this out at the range yet. I've just been doing realistically just trying to just gauge in a field, in a type of everyday environment type thing. I haven't gone to the range to test it, what kind of readings I get at West End, but considering I tested out here, you know, up to 2,400 yards in what I would consider ideal lighting conditions for this, I think it'll perform fine up the West End, which only goes out to about 550 yards. I haven't taken this to Pendleton yet because there hasn't been a match at Camp Pendleton that I can go to, but there's a 1,000-yard match coming up on September 11th, I believe, Sunday. So I'm gonna head out to that and probably test this out there. Okay, a few things. I'm going to talk about my blog article, which I'm going to write in the near future once I do a little bit more testing. But for this little video, other things, the little things I want to nitpick are, one, this doesn't come with a tripod mount. I'm going to discuss this in length on my blog article, but I had to get this Really Right Stuff Arca Swiss compatible clamp plate. And so since there's no 1/4 inch by 20 thread tripod mount on this, you're kind of screwed, you know, literally, or no, just proverbially rather. But you don't have a thread, so you can't mount this on a tripod or any kind of secure mounting position. So it's kind of hard to hand hold this thing if you're gonna laze a long range target. So you kind of want to have a tripod, and so unfortunately you have to buy a third-party solution in order to get a tripod mount on this. But Really Right Stuff, if you don't know Really Right Stuff, they're a well-known camera mount manufacturer. They make tripods, ball head mounts, and other types of adapters for Arca Swiss style plates, plate systems. But Really Right Stuff, I buy a lot of their plates, and so I was happy to find out that they have an adapter or a mount for the SIG KILO2000. And just a little aside, they are starting to produce some shooting related items. They're advertising they're marketing their tripod and one of their heads to shooters, long range precision shooters. And they're also creating clamps and mounts for rifles, whether it be Picatinny rail, key mod, M-Lock, I think. No, they haven't done M-Lock yet, but they're doing other things like Accuracy International. All those adapt for their heads, or an Arca Swiss style clamp. So that's a really cool thing that Really Right Stuff is doing. So check them out. Anyway, aside from the fact that it doesn't have a tripod mount built in, the other thing is the batteries it uses, a CR2 battery, I think it's called. And this is something that I don't have. I don't have any items that use this kind of battery. And so I had to order a bunch of spares, and it's going to be kind of tedious to carry around 1 or 2 spares in my bags, along with all the other spare batteries I carry, like CR123As, CR2450s for my aim point, or whatever I use for my red dots, and for my my illuminated vortex scopes. So it's just one more battery to worry about. Then the case. The case wasn't really designed for the Really Right Stuff mount on it, but it does fit in it. The one thing I don't care for the case, I mean, the case is really cool, right? It's a nice little stretch mount right here, and it just clamps on there. It's really easy to open and close, and it stays relatively secure. But one is, if you have it like I have it configured where its lens is up, it can kind of shove over to one side, and you could damage the lens depending on how it shifts in your bag and what you have in your bag. So it's kind of something to be wary of. Maybe if I put it lens down, but I can't put it lens down because I have this Really Right Stuff tripod adapter hooked up to it. So it doesn't fit in the case like that. So I have to keep it lens up. Two, I kind of wish the case had a MOLLE, it was MOLLE compatible, so I could put malice clips in it to hook it up to a bag or something. Right now it just has a loop for, I guess, a belt, or you can put on a carabiner. I would much rather have it such that it's MOLLE compatible. That would make more sense. And even if it were MOLLE compatible, you can still put on your belt. So I don't know why they just, I guess SIG Kilo probably wasn't thinking too hard about their case. Although it is a nice SIG Sauer wasn't thinking too hard about their case. But that in itself, the case works pretty well. It's designed decently enough. Right now, that's the only thing I can nitpick on the SIG KILO2000. Again, it's a pretty good laser rangefinder as far as I'm concerned. This is my only laser rangefinder. Obviously, my opinion is a little bit not well, I guess, backed up as far as not having much experience with laser rangefinders, but it seems to hold up pretty well considering it lased all the targets that I tried to laze within relative expectancy of specification. I'm gonna have an article written up hopefully in the next few weeks, but I'm gonna try to post this video up ahead of time just so people can watch it and get my opinion, my initial opinions of the SIG KILO2000 laser rangefinder. Again, it's about $500 retail, or sorry, $500 street price. I don't know the retail price. It might be the same price as retail. I got mine from Brownells with a coupon, so it's always a good idea. I mean, if you're shopping around, Brownells has coupons. I know other guys get military discounts from other vendors. Check them out. But I'm a huge fan of Brownells Inc. because their warranty or their customer service is excellent. They have a great warranty policy with the products they sell. It's not products they manufacture, products they sell. So if you have a problem with the product that you bought from them, you can send it back to them and there's no issues. It's like a 100% lifetime guarantee on these things. So anyway, SIG KILO2000 laser rangefinder, check it out. Hopefully this proves a little bit informative for you until I get my article written up.